What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. Tonight, it's Tuesday night. It's about 7 p.m. Central Time here. We have a huge Week 13 waiver wire run. We have about 2 weeks left in the regular season. I know some leagues are starting their playoffs maybe even next week or this week. But either way, we're going to get into all of the major, player ads and the situations that we need to go over. We might even look at some of the player news and stuff at the end of the video. So let's get right into it. I'm going to use ESPN here because that's where the majority of my leagues are played on. And I'll kind of show you guys like how I look for waiver wire ads. And essentially right now, I have all QBs shown here. We're going to go over the QBs first. And then I have it filtered by projections. And then we're just going to take a walk down here on the percent rostered tab. And I'm kind of just looking for anything that sticks out. And the first guy that sticks out here is Deshaun Watson. He's projected 19.3 points in this scoring format. That's QB7 for the week here. So I do think he's like a top 10, top 15 play. He's only 43% rostered. So on ESPN, if you need a QB1 this week, I think he's a good option. Kyler Murray is on bye. The Panthers are also on bye, but we don't need to worry about that. So Deshaun Watson's the first guy here in your traditional 10-team or 12-team league where you just start the one QB. It's time to get Deshaun Watson on the, on the bench or as your QB2, or maybe even start him up this week. So he's the first guy that's widely available in most leagues. And as we continue down the list here, the next guy is going to be Trevor Lawrence. He's under 60% rostered. He's got that big, bright green 32 that we love looking for. That's the opponent ranking here. So he has the best matchup this weekend. So if you're going to stream someone, I personally would rather stream Trevor Lawrence over Deshaun Watson. You look at that matchup for Watson. He's going against the Texans. They don't allow a lot of QB points. So Trevor Lawrence is probably the first QB that you're looking for on the waiver wire. And that game against the Ravens, man, I was able to catch the end of it because they, NBC or was it Fox or CBS went to that game. And he's been pretty good. The last two games, he's had back-to-back games over 20 points, 5 touchdowns the last 2 games, almost 600 yards. He does allow himself to get, room for yards on the ground as well as rushing touchdowns. So it's looking pretty good for Trevor Lawrence here. Again, it's at Detroit. I would like to think he can hit, 16 to 20 points. He's probably the best streaming option this week. And we got Brady in here with a good question. Does Amari Cooper become a top 10 wide receiver with Watson back? I am super excited. This is a very good question because the Browns outlook the rest of the way, man. I think you're excited about Watson. You're excited about Cooper. You're excited about Njoku. You're also excited about Donovan Peoples-Jones. What remains to be seen was what's going to happen with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I mean, I think Nick Chubb is kind of locked into, top 5, top 10 back every week. But maybe there's some value added to Kareem Hunt. But with the question being on Amari Cooper, let's take a look at the schedule the rest of the way, because it is a tough matchup against the Texans in terms of fantasy points allowed, this is just on the fantasyfellowship.com. You can check out the fantasy points allowed tab. But the Texans, man, somehow they're a stingy defense against the wide receiver. So I'll even show you here. Against the QB, they're only allowing about 13 quarterback points per game here. So this matchup for Deshaun Watson, it's his first game in over probably almost 2 years. So I can't expect him, to be a top 10 quarterback this week. I think he's more of a streaming quarterback. And then if we look at the wide receiver points, the Texans, man, they're the 5th best. Only about 27.65 points per game to the receiver. They've only allowed 4 touchdowns. That's the fewest in the league. So they're kind of a run funneled team where their run defense is so bad. That's where all the points are going against them. So it's a great week for Nick Chubb. Amari Cooper, we love Amari Cooper, but I think we need to just limit our expectations this week. But for the rest of the season, let's look at the schedule here. They're going to get Cincinnati, Baltimore, New Orleans, and Washington. So Cincy, Baltimore, New Orleans, and Washington. I want to look at the wide receiver points here. The Baltimore Ravens are allowing a ton of wide receiver points here, so that's a good matchup. You have the Commanders, who are kind of middle of the road, as well as the Saints, and then we mentioned the Bengals. So it looks like the Bengals are going to be his toughest matchup, but I would say rest of the season, maybe Cooper's not a top 10, but he's definitely a fringe wide receiver 1, probably like a top 12, top 15 wide receiver. I think he probably looks best as your wide receiver 2, but I think there's reason to be excited about Amari Cooper, so I'm a big fan. Steven, what's going on, my man? Is Snell or Warren a good pickup this week if I can't get Zamir White? If Mixon plays, is he a better option than Pierce? Well, I think I think if Mixon plays, you got to play with Joe Mixon. And I know they're playing against the Chiefs. The Chiefs defense, kind of middle of the road here against the running back position. They're allowing about 24 points. But I think if Mixon's back, you're going to want to get him in there. Now, with that being said, Dameon Pierce, he's got himself a pretty good matchup this week. I know the Texans themselves have just been awful the last 2 games here. So I'm reluctant to start Dameon Pierce. I do think if there's going to be a bounce back, it's going to be this weekend at home against Cleveland. And they just let the other rookie, Rachaad White, have a pretty nice, he almost had 19 or 20 PPR points. So I do think this could be the week Dameon Pierce gets back on track, but I prefer Mixon. And then is Snell or Warren a good pickup this week if I can't get Z? That's a great question because I'm waiting to see what's going on with Jaylen Warren. He's been held out the last few games with a hamstring injury. And I think if you told me both Snell and Warren are healthy, Warren's the better ad. And the thing with Najee now, I get really nervous about the Steelers. Their season is not really going to go anywhere. They're not going to the playoffs. Najee's a foundational piece here. They might try and be very cautious with him and the potential for re-injury. We know he's had the foot injuries for a while, and now that he's got this oblique or abdominal thing going on, we might not see a lot of Najee. So I think it's warranted to get Snell or Warren. Whereas Zamir White, I view Zamir White as more of like, he's only got value if Josh Jacobs is out this week. I would expect Josh Jacobs to be fine kind of the rest of the way. So to me, it's hard because we don't really have the practice reports yet, but I think I'm going to hold on to Warren over Zamir White and Benny Snell. And then Cooper's put up good numbers of most of his targets being catchable. And that's the thing, like Cooper's going to get a boost in his value of targets. He's probably going to get a boost towards, his receptions, his targets, his receptions, and then the yards as well. So Cooper's definitely a guy that probably his trade window has closed. Now that Watson's back, you probably need to get him on your team if not already. But I'm going to get back to just identifying some quarterback streamers this week. Rodgers says he's going to play. He's only 77% rostered. It's a good matchup for Rodgers here. But if you need him, I'd probably rather go with Trevor Lawrence or even Deshaun Watson. Kind of the next guy that sticks out is Derek Carr. He's going to get the Chargers. Chargers are a decent matchup for Derek Carr. He has been playing. He played pretty well the last 2 games, really, Seattle and Denver. Denver's a really good defense. And the fact that Carr's getting 18, 17, 20, 20, the last 4 games, I'm open to Derek Carr being a streamer this week. And then let's see, Marcus Mariota. We don't love the matchup. The Steelers do allow a handful of points to the running or to the quarterback position. So Mariota's not a bad streamer. And then Jimmy Garoppolo is probably the last guy here. So if you need a quarterback, that's where we're at. If you're in Superflex, though, Mike White needs to be picked up. He's definitely worth a stream. He's getting the Vikings this weekend. The Vikings can't stop the QB. So I like Mike White quite a bit. But let me know if you guys have any more QB questions. Otherwise, we'll move on to probably the most important part of the show, and that's the running backs. Good evening to Ryan. Hope you're doing well. Should I trade Njoku and Schultz for Hawkinson? Interesting. Hawkinson right now, the rest of season, like if you don't have Kelsey, if you don't have Mark Andrews, you want Hawkinson. He's tight end number 3 on the year right now. And if we look at his numbers with the Vikings, since he was traded, he's put up 16, 11, 8.4, 15.3. So of the 3 tight ends on the screen, you're getting the best tight end. And with matchups against the Jets, the Lions, the Colts, the Giants, the Packers, these are some tougher defenses here, but I still think you look at the targets, 9, 10, 9, 6, like you're getting a more stable piece of the offense. But I will say, I really like Njoku, man, especially Njoku now that Deshaun Watson's there. Njoku's tight end 8 on the season. Before his injury, he was tight end number 4. So who knows, like if Njoku never got hurt with that high ankle, he might be the tight end 3 on the year. So I'm tempted to go get Hawkinson. If that's what it costs, I'm okay with it. It is nice to have a backup tight end at times, so I'm cool with it. But I just want you to know, Njoku. Outside of Kelsey, Andrews, and then you have Hawkinson. Hawkinson's like the clear number 3. Njoku's like he's the next guy there. It's Njoku, Freiermuth, or Kittle, and they're all kind of in the same tier here. So I don't know if it's that much of an upgrade, but I think it's safe to say Hawkinson's the guy. Lawrence or Danny Dimes at QB this week? I'm gonna go with Trevor Lawrence. I do like Daniel Jones. I love his rushing ability. But going up against Washington, teams against Washington just haven't had a lot of room for improvement lately. Like they're one of the best defenses in the league. And then this week, I added a tab on so these are the fantasy points allowed charts. I added a new tab here showing which teams over the last 5 weeks, which teams are allowing the most fantasy points here. And the Commanders, they're the third best defense in football in limiting fantasy points here. So they're playing great ball. They're only allowing 14.25 points to the quarterback position. If we scroll all the way up here, the Lions, they're allowing 27 points to the QB position. So I think it's a numbers game. I think you got to go with Trevor Lawrence this week. The Chiefs a good start on defense this week. I'm really not excited to get them in lineups. Let me show you another tab that I got here. I have the Week 13 spreads, and what I like to do is I like to fill this out. I usually fill this out on Tuesday. I go to DraftKings Sportsbook. I'll type in all the spreads, the game totals, and then I have an algorithm that tells me the team totals. You can see the Chiefs are projected to score about 27, but their opponent, Cincinnati, projected to score about 25. So 52.5 points implied in that game. I would recommend not starting a defense in this game. It's also in Cincinnati, so I'm expecting 3-4 touchdowns from Joe Burrow and the Bengals in this one. So it's not a great start. If you're looking for defenses, and the best way to read this chart is I have it highlighted by team total. So this is how much points each team's projected to score this week. You want to be down here for your defenses. So like the Denver Broncos, only projected to score about 15 points. You want to start the Ravens. You want to start the Cowboys, the Seahawks, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Buffalo, Philadelphia. I know they're probably already rostered, but I like Washington. I like Cleveland, maybe Atlanta. I do like Pittsburgh, actually. I like Pittsburgh's defense because we don't really trust Atlanta offensively here. So I'd be looking at some of these guys. I guess Seattle, we know the Rams are pretty dinged up right now. They're probably widely available. So to me, the top streamers on defense are Seattle, Cleveland, Washington, teams like that. Steven says he has Colts defense. Should I pick up Browns or Seahawks for this week and possibly the playoffs? I have the Colts defense. The Colts going up against Dallas. I probably don't want to start the Colts against Dallas. The Colts did allow, Kenny Pickett to do some things last night. You probably don't want to get the Colts in there. So I think Browns and Seahawks for this week and possibly the playoffs. Let's actually look at their remaining schedules. And actually, I have a tool here on the website. Let's look at the schedule grid. And it might be hard for you guys to read on here, but I'm just going to kind of zoom in and see what we can do. It's kind of blurry, actually. But anyway, Seattle, they're going to get the Rams this weekend, but they get Carolina next weekend. So you'll like that matchup, week 14. They also get San Francisco, Kansas City, and the Jets. So that's more of a 2-week rental. I like the Seahawks defense for a 2-week rental. And then the Browns, they're going to get Cincinnati next week, Baltimore. But they do get the Saints and the Commanders the final 2 weeks here. So I would say the move is probably – I love the Browns defense against the Texans this week. But if you want a 2-week team, I would say the Seahawks versus the Rams and the Carolina Panthers. Are Vikings a good defense because of their remaining schedule? Technically, I would advise against the Vikings defense. If we look at the fantasy points allowed lately, they've been allowing a lot of points here. So they are – let me go down here. Technically, over the last 5 weeks, they're the second worst team in fantasy points allowed. So it's not a great team to be targeting right now. Let's look at their schedule. The Vikings are going to get, so they get the Jets, the Lions, the Colts, the Giants, and the Packers. So now I understand. I get what you mean. We don't expect those teams to light them up on the scoreboard. I think they're fine to hold on to. I will say, though, they're at Detroit and they're at Green Bay for 2 of those games, but otherwise they get the Jets at home, the Colts at home, and the Giants at home. So I'm fine with the Vikings if you're looking for a team to stash for the rest of the playoffs. That's not a bad pull at all. But let's get to the meat of the show here. We're going to look at the running backs off the waiver wire this weekend. So the way I have this right now is I'm going to filter this by projections. I'm going to just kind of keep my eye down the percent rostered tab and see who sticks out, who's going to be the guy that we can pick up this week. And the first guy kind of tripping the sensors is the Rams running back Kieran Williams. I don't know if it's Kyron or Kieran, but he's about 20% rostered and he's projected 11 points here. Over the last 3 games, he's seen his numbers go up. You see 1 carry, 7 carries, 11 carries. The yards haven't gone up over the last 2 games, but you do like that his carries continue to go up, and you look at his receptions, he's going to catch a couple passes per game, and his fantasy points, on a bad game, he'll get you 6. You got 9 last week, and we know Cam Akers is just not himself. And if we go back to the fantasy points allowed here, the Seahawks are one of the worst teams on the season. The Seahawks are the worst team against the running back. And I know that's a lot because of Josh Jacobs and what he just did. But you got to like the matchup for Kieran Williams. If you need a running back or you just want to stash someone, he's probably the guy here. He's probably one of the top waiver wire ads. Let me look if I can continue to find someone else. I mean, Rachaad White, he's 65% rostered on ESPN. That should be way higher. He's a RB2 the rest of the season. But the other guy kind of tripping the sensors here is the other rookie, Zonovan Knight. And I think his nickname's Bam Knight. He's going to get the Vikings. The Jets rookie running back here got his first duty. 14 carries, 69 yards. That's a great yards per carry. But the kicker here is the 3 catches for 34 yards. We love that. 13.3 points with no touchdown. He's going to get the Vikings this week. Now, I will say, rest of season, I want Kieran Williams. For this week, I think Zonovan Knight can be the guy. We know Michael Carter's probably going to miss at least a game or 2 with that ankle sprain. And against Minnesota, I think it's worth a shot. Now, we'll see if James Robinson, I'm expecting James Robinson to be active in this game, but who knows, man? Like, Zonovan Knight might be the guy here. I'm surprised that Robinson was a healthy scratch last week, so maybe Zonovan Knight's the guy. If you need someone, and we know the Jets love to run the ball, he's probably a guy worth stashing on your bench the rest of the season. Maybe not starting him this week, but definitely go and add him if you can. I do like Gus Edwards here as well. He's about 40% rostered, projected about 10 points. It was his first game back from that hammy, and 16 carries, 52 yards, and a touchdown. So not the best output on yards per carry. He did lose a fumble as well. But I really like the potential for Gus Edwards. He's got a couple tough matchups. He's going to get Denver, Pittsburgh, but he gets Cleveland, Atlanta, and Pittsburgh again. So Gus Edwards, definitely a guy worth stashing. Let me see if I can find another one. Pacheco should be owned in 10 and 12-man leagues. So should A.J. Dillon. If you need a PPR scat back, I think Jerick McKinnon can be of service to you. He kind of had a couple rough weeks the last 2 games here, but I do see the Cincinnati game. I expect him to have a good game. That's going to be probably a shootout, so you want to start him in pass-happy games. Cam Akers, whatever. Tyler Algier remains productive. He's not getting a ton of volume, but 11, 8, 8. You can expect maybe 10 touches per game. If anything happens to Cordero Patterson, he's going to be worth a stash. And then the guy that I think is pretty sneaky, there's a couple guys here. We got a line of them here. Mike Boone, he's coming back from IR. We know Latavius Murray is there, but they liked Mike Boone. He was getting, he was out touching Melvin Gordon at parts of the season here. So Mike Boone, definitely worth a stash on your bench. And then Jaylen Warren, we had the question from Steven earlier in the show. And Jaylen Warren, he's actually looked really good. Before his hamstring injury, he was, eating into Najee Harris's workload. So you have a guy that's had 3 games of double-digit points. He has yet to score a touchdown on the season. And we're talking about Najee Harris, who's banged up. He's had the foot injury lingering all year. And then you talk about this new abdominal injury. Who knows if he's going to be ready to play this weekend, but he's going to get Atlanta, Baltimore, Carolina, the Raiders, and Baltimore again. So I like stashing Jaylen Warren. If you can't get Warren, go ahead and get Benny Snell. But I think it's pretty telling that Warren here is projected 7.4. Hopefully he can practice this week, but we'll get some data on that tomorrow. And then we have JaMycal Hasty. Travis Etienne with that foot injury, he was cleared to return against the Ravens, but he did not. They were very cautious with him. Now, Hasty's not going to blow us away with his running ability. He's a really good pass-catching back, which is going to fit that Etienne mold. And a game against Detroit, Tennessee, Dallas, the Jets, Houston coming up, like that's a really nice schedule for the Jags. And if Etienne goes out and he hurts that foot again, or if they're going to kind of limit him in the next couple games, like Hasty is a guy that's worth holding on to for the playoff stretch as well. Samaje Perine should be stashed just in case Mixon. And Mixon has 1 concussion on his belt already. If he gets another one, or if he gets hurt any other way, Perine looking like an interesting pickup. Let me see if I can find anybody else here that's worth a shot in the waiver wire this week. Oh, it just kind of went weird on me. I'm going to hit percent rostered here. Let's see if I can find anybody else that sticks out. There was one guy I wanted to talk about, and that's going to be Myles Gaskin. We know Raheem Mostert's hurt, and they gave Gaskin some carries last week. And Jeff Wilson, I'm not sure what's going on with him, but he didn't play very well last week. But Gaskin's probably a stash play right now. We just talked about Jalen Warren. Not too many other guys here that I'm super excited about. We did get a question earlier about Zamir White and Amir Abdullah. Abdullah would probably be the guy that interests me more. He's been involved in the passing game the last 3 weeks. 3 catches, 4 catches. He caught a touchdown against the Seahawks. He's going to be kind of like a Jerick McKinnon type, where he's going to get a handful of carries and some reception work if no Josh Jacobs this week. And then there's Zamir White. So if you have Jacobs, go ahead and pick up Zamir White. He might be plug and play. But that's kind of it. That's where we're looking at. And then the last one I want to talk about is the 49ers backs. Let me actually filter here by SF. And I'll get to Brady's question in a second here. But the running backs behind Christian McCaffrey, now that Elijah Mitchell's pretty much done for the year, you have Christian McCaffrey with knee irritation. I do not love that. That's not what you want going into the playoffs here. That could easily get flared up, or he could be limited the rest of the season. So now we're talking about 2 rookie running backs. You have the guy they drafted in Tyrion Davis-Price, and then Jordan Mason, the undrafted guy out of Georgia Tech, who has basically beat out Tyrion Davis-Price. He was the one that was active last week. He's the guy that's probably going to be the next man up. And I think if I'm going to add one, I want to add Jordan Mason. If you're a Christian McCaffrey owner, go ahead and get Jordan Mason. Even Tyrion Davis-Price is worth a look in the future, but I think Mason's probably the guy you want to get on your teams right now. Let me look at the questions here before we go to the wide receivers. Is Thielen a good pickup if I drop Kupp? I mean, I think at this point, it's pretty safe to say we're not going to see Cooper Kupp the rest of the way. Allen Robinson's already been shelved for the year. I would imagine Matthew Stafford's not going to play this year. So I'm fine with, if you need the roster space, Adam Thielen should be picked up. He might not be a great play this weekend against the Jets, but Cooper Kupp's not doing us any service on our benches probably for this season. Sell high on Rachaad White. I'm open to it. He's kind of a hot name right now. So if you can get another running back for him, I'm totally open to that. Let me see what his projections are this week. ESPN's got Leonard Fournette out projecting him with 11.6. Rachaad White down here at 10.4. It's a tough matchup against the Saints, but I mean, if you can cash in Rachaad White and go ahead and get, I mean, if you can get somebody like Tony Pollard or something like that, I think it's worth looking into. But yeah, go ahead and see what you can get for Rachaad White. But let's move on to the receiver position. This is probably the most fruitful of the positions here. Let me see what I got, kind of just scrolling down here. Christian Watson has been fantastic. I hope you guys were able to get him a couple of weeks ago. But the guy that's on everyone's waiver wires this week is going to be Zay Jones. He's about 31% rostered in ESPN formats. And career game last week, man. He looked really good. He had 14 targets, 11 for 145. He's been really solid. 27, 14, 9, 6, 10, 9. I think this is a player that you can comfortably leave as your wide receiver 3 and just see what happens. The next 2 games, he's going to get Detroit and Tennessee. Both those teams are pretty bad against the opponent passing game. So Zay Jones is the top of the list here for wide receivers. If you need someone, it's gross. It's the Rams. We kind of want to stay away from them, especially in the passing game. But Van Jefferson, he's back and healthy. His last 3 games, you see 11, 7, 11. He's going to be the number 1 receiver for the rest of the year. Targets are going up. Touchdowns are coming in. I think Van Jefferson's a guy that needs to be picked up. Paris Campbell can be of service to you if you need a wide receiver 3 flex option. He didn't play great against the Steelers, but he had been coming around the corner, but he's more of just a deeper league. Let's see. Nico Collins, only 11% rostered. But look at these numbers. The last 3 games since he returned from injury, 15.9, 9.8, and 10.4. Look at the targets. 10, 7, 9, 5 catches, and 6. So this is the guy right here. Nico Collins, basically a 9 to 10 point floor. I like what's going on here. Maybe Davis Mills comes back and puts some more opportunity on his plate. But I like Nico Collins a lot as an ad. With the Raiders, we have Mac Hollins here, 12.5% rostered. And this is the guy that's been playing well the last 2 games. 9 targets and 5 targets. He caught a touchdown against Seattle, 6 for 52 against Denver, who does not allow wide receiver points. So that's a good game there. And then 4 for 63 against the Seahawks. Now he's on the field just as much as Devontae Adams. You could get a 3-point game here, but if you look at the last 6, 4 games over double digits, 2 duds. It's probably worth rolling the dice if you need a wide receiver pick up there. Go ahead and grab Donovan Peoples-Jones if he's out there, 42% rostered. With Deshaun Watson back, he needs to be picked up. We might see Corey Davis turn the corner here. He didn't have a great game. Only 3 targets, 1 for 9. It was his first game back from injury, but he had been playing pretty well earlier in the year. And now that it's Mike White, being a little bit more stable for the offense in the passing game, maybe Corey Davis, only 8% rostered here, could be of service. Maybe Randall Cobb. Treylon Burks is probably outside of Zay Jones. It's Treylon Burks. He's only 37% rostered here. Let me look and show you. The last 2 games, man, it's starting to come together. 17 points, 18 points. Of course, he got the fumble recovery touchdown last weekend, but still 4 for 70. That's 11 points. We'll take that. And then the week before against Green Bay, he saw career highs in receptions, yards, and targets. He's putting together some nice games. He's going to be in the 6 to 8 target range. Games against Philly, Jacksonville, the Chargers, Houston, and Dallas to finish the year. Treylon Burks is going to be a wide receiver 3 the rest of the way. And then another one of my favorites here is Darius Slayton. He's 37% rostered. Look at his last, basically since week 5, he's had 5 games over double digits in his last 7 games. The 9.3, that's almost, basically a double-digit game. So 6 good games out of the last 7. This is looking like the Giants' #1 receiver. Some tough matchups ahead here, but I still think he's a guy that needs to be owned in deeper formats. And then Michael Gallup needs to be rostered as well. I think I got everybody that I wanted to talk about. Let me just do one more deep dive here. See if I can find anybody. I suppose Chase Claypool, now that Darnell Mooney's out, maybe Chase Claypool's worth a look. Let's see if we can find anybody else. We said Zay Jones. Julio Jones hasn't been looking bad. The last couple games here, you see 8, 14, 4, and 10. He probably is worth a shot in deeper leagues. Let me see here. That's pretty much the majority of the guys that I wanted to cover. So if you guys do have wide receiver ad questions, let me know in the comments. We'll get to those next. But we'll move on to tight end here. And again, we mentioned earlier in the show, if you don't have Kelsey, Andrews, or Hawkinson, we're all kind of fishing at tight end. But as far as guys that are probably pretty good pickups this week, so we're looking at guys about under 70% rostered. Hayden Hurst remains a pretty useful piece in that Bengals offense. And with the addition of Jamar Chase this week, we might see him kind of get some softer coverages. So I like Hayden Hurst as a potential streamer the rest of the way. Otherwise, Foster Moreau, 35% rostered here. He scored 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. Double digits here. I don't know if we're going to see Darren Waller anytime soon. So Moreau, especially this week against the Chargers, Moreau is definitely in play. Evan Ingram, with the attention of Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, Ingram has a pretty good matchup against the Lions. I know he's been pretty bad the last 3 games, but he had been playing well, up until about week 8. So Ingram's worth a shot this week. And the other guy that I like quite a bit here is Tyler Conklin. Again, we mentioned Mike White. Conklin, not a high target guy, but at one point in the year, he's tight end 11 on the year. At one point, he was like the tight end 5 or something. So this is the guy here with Mike White. He could be of service for us the rest of the way. Hunter Henry, maybe. Logan Thomas, maybe. Let me know if you guys have tight end questions here, but that's pretty much it for the tight ends and everything else that we want to talk about. So that's going to do it for me in this show. I just wanted to go live and kind of talk through all the waiver wire options before they run tonight into tomorrow. So thank you guys so much for your time. We'll go live tomorrow night, Wednesday night. We go live at 7 p.m. Central Time like usual. We'll do the live show on Thursday night as well. So we're back in the swing of things. I hope you guys all had a great Thanksgiving week. Now we're on to a normal schedule. So we'll get some live streams in there. And thank you guys for your time. Have a good rest of your evening, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.